Hi, my name is Jen Kramer, and you're listening to the Happy Hippie Jesus Show.
Wow, you did a great job with that, Jennifer. And Jeremy and I have this running bet. Jeremy's not here right now, so you feel free to say that Jesus is a hippie when I ask you this, since that's my stance. And Jeremy says no. Not that I'm stacking anything. But, so do you think Jesus was a hippie?
That's a loaded question. And I think Jesus would like us all to think he was whatever we think he is. That's the political answer. I would have to say he was probably slightly hippie. He had very controversial views. He took a lot of risks. He was gutsy. And, that's a question I've never had to answer. But I would have to say, there's a good chance of that.
That means I get another point this year. That puts me one above Jeremy now.
Okay, good.
Unfortunately, Jeremy couldn't be here this week because he had a meeting at the same time as our scheduled interview, but he does wish he could be here with you, and he sends his apologies. You embarked on a really interesting endeavor last year. Was it 2018 or 2017 you embarked on this?
It was 2018, just a year ago.
Okay. Could you tell our audience about that endeavor a little bit?
Sure. So, about the time when people start thinking about New Year's resolutions. I don't consider myself to be a New Year's resolution type of gal. However, I had read an article that said, instead of taking on a New Year's resolution that's about you, why don't you consider doing something that would make a difference for other people? And that really lit me up. And I thought, well, that's definitely something I could do. Full well knowing that I hadn't ever completed a New Year's resolution for 365 days, I was really interested in seeing if that was something I could do. And so I vowed to take on 365 days of acknowledging the people in my life, whether they be people in my immediate circle or, as the project expanded, people that were somewhat unknown to me. And I can say more about that later. But the plan was to take on the year of love. Each and every day I would publicly acknowledge, or some have said it was writing a love letter to people in my life, letting them know what they meant to me, and certainly letting the rest of the world know what they meant to me. So that was last year.
So did you do maybe social media posts, or were you actually writing physical letters?
No, it was all done on social media. You can search for it on primarily Facebook, but I also did some of it on my Instagram. It was very public, and that led to lots of ripple effect of the project. People got really inspired for themselves that they could take something on similar to this. And so it's one of those things that I'm hoping has lasting effect on all of the people that have witnessed it.
You're not a pastor. You're not a missionary. You're not clergy of any kind, right?
That's correct.
That's correct. You are an everyday average citizen, and you went about changing people's lives through this. And that's one of the things we want to remind people on our show, is that even an act of just publicly acknowledging people like you were doing changes lives. That was one of the reasons when I read your story, I said, man, we've got to get her on the show. We really do.
Well, thank you.
What was it like to write that very first post?
On January 1st, I posted that this was going to be my plan, that for the rest of the year, this is what people could anticipate hearing from me about. In a time and age when social media is divisive and causes arguments and fake news and all those sort of things, I was really interested in publicly taking this on to alter the way that I used social media. And so my very first post was on January 2nd, and that was about my aunt, who was just about to undergo a pretty significant surgery, and she was top of mind for me on that day. And so the post was about her. And very typically, I posted a picture of the person. I wrote, anywhere from 5 to 8 sentences, one little paragraph about who that person was and why they were important to me. And that was my very first post.
You said why you chose your aunt. How did you choose the other people you started writing to later on?
Yeah, so the irony is that when I embarked on this exercise, I didn't really have a plan. I knew that it was going to get sorted out as I went. I also knew that I was going to do it for 365 days. That's about all I knew. And I didn't have any strategy as to who I was choosing or why I was choosing them, except for the fact that they were just going to show themselves to me in some way. I was going to be reminded about them. I was going to see them. Many times it was somebody that I would interact with or have lunch with. And then as time ticked on and as the weeks turned into months, I noticed a homeless person on my block who I had seen several times. And one day I stopped and talked to Anthony. And, I introduced myself. I learned his name, learned his story, started a conversation, and Anthony was my post for that day. There were times when I was very clear first thing in the morning who was top of mind in my meditation or prayer time. And then there were other times when it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night and I really had to reflect on my day or reflect on, my interactions for that day or that week and see who was going to sort of show up. And ironically, as I went, where I went, love showed up. The day I went to my dry cleaners and talked to Mr. and Mrs. Kim, who, I never knew their names or their story. And so that's sort of organically how people just got chosen. I ran out of days, or I ran out of time to feature all the people that I would have loved to this last year. And some people say, well, I don't know 365 people. You'd be amazed at how many people you actually do know. And so that's really the genesis for how people got chosen or not got chosen. I didn't intentionally leave anybody out, but it was really sort of a spontaneous way that I came to them, or more importantly, they came to me.
It's not that you knew 365 people that amazed me. It's that you followed through on it and you did this for 365 days because, this year I decided I was going to exercise more. I made it through 2 days of sore muscles and decided maybe I need to slow this down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I, Reverend, I can identify with that. I have had a lot of lofty goals myself, and for whatever reason, my humanity creeps in and I give up. But this particular exercise was going to be different. And, I don't know myself to do anything daily, besides brush my teeth, right? But I just really committed on January 1st, on that day of renewal, on, a fresh start, new year, all of those sort of sentiments, and really made a commitment to myself that I was going to see this one through.
And the fact that you made it public, I'm sure made you feel like in the beginning, when it was a little bit tougher to do it each and every day, you know what? I made this commitment public. I've got to continue on. Did that ever cross your mind?
Well, sure. There was that part of it. I think part of the reason why I made it public was to have some outside accountability. When I started to notice how many people were paying attention, and that was indicated by the likes I was receiving or the shares or the, comments I was getting, people sending me notes. I don't go on Facebook often, but when I do, it's to look at who you're talking about. I noticed that there was sort of a demand for it, that I said I was going to do this and people paid attention. And now there was an expectation that I, in fact, was going to do it every day, like I said. So I think that kept the fire burning, so to speak, and certainly had me remain accountable and kept me really in touch with what I said I was going to do.
After a few weeks, did you have a couple of friends maybe that were like, so when are you going to write about me? I just want to know.
Yeah. So there were some instances of, I have 3 nieces, and, they're high school and college age. They're actually second cousins, but they're like nieces to me. I would feature one and then the other 2, wait, when's my turn? It was like people really wanted to be publicly acknowledged. They wanted other people to know who they were. I did have some of that. And then I had, the gratitude when I would post about somebody that I knew either intimately or, a little bit of a arm's reach away. People were really honored and they were flattered. I made the year of love. I heard that from some folks. I heard from a friend the other day that said, as Facebook sort of shows you what you posted last year, she said, this was my year of love day last year. So it was really alive and real for people. And they were grateful for that virtual love letter.
As you wrote the love letters, to different people, did you find you were discovering new things about the people you were writing about? Maybe you knew them in the back of your mind, but as you wrote, it brought them to the forefront and created a new appreciation for that person?
That's a really great question, because for so many people in our lives, I'm not going to speak for others, but I have a sense that you're pretty clear what you like about somebody and why you're friends, or why you're why you're colleagues, or why you enjoy certain people maybe more than others. And those things can all be somewhat subconscious, I think, or you decide something about somebody and it quickly falls to the back of your brain, so to speak. And, taking the sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes a day to sit and really think about what to write about somebody who was important to me really took something. It had me sit and reflect and think about and pull up an example, or really try to call on how they made me feel. And so, yes, that really did renew my appreciation for people, so much so that I think it actually made it easier as I went along, because the gratitude that I was experiencing for people in my life really just kept getting more and more magnified, not just for the individuals, but really just for my community overall. As the process continued, I really started to feel overwhelming gratitude, not just for my relationships, but for what they created for me in my life, and certainly what all of those relationships really, really, truly mean to me.
Have you had any thoughts about maybe writing a memoir of that year of love, just so that you could share on even a broader sense? This is how this changed me and changed the people around me in my life.
I've certainly given it thought. I don't know myself to be an author or even a great writer. I know that this was a tremendous exercise in practicing that. I don't know that a stranger would necessarily care about all the people per se in my life, but I do know that a stranger would care about the experience. And, the fact of the matter is, this was something that cost me no money. It just took a little bit of time. It was a decision, and then it took the time to do it. I know a lot of people feel like they don't have that sort of time, but in sharing my experience, I know that there's an opportunity to inspire other people, whether they're, 25 or 85, to really experience the power of gratitude and how it's really changed me. Not to be dramatic, but that exercise really changed me forever. It changed those relationships, and it certainly changed my perspective on who I'm grateful for. I've entertained the idea. I've entertained the idea of writing, an expanded short story, or potentially doing a few podcast episodes on it, so people could really hear for themselves what would be possible. I've also planned to launch a website, ironically, around Valentine's Day of this year, so people could learn about the Year of Love and post their own instances of gratitude and love for others.
I would love to sit and listen to a podcast in which you spent time talking with all 365 people that you wrote about. And you've got 365 built-in shows right there. That would just...
Sounds like a lot of work.
But it sure is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. What I've gotten out of doing a podcast, if I'll just share, is it's forced me to search out stories like yours. And that inspires me quite a bit. So thank you for inspiring me.
Oh, well, you are more than welcome. Let me just say one thing about this exercise. I never took on the Year of Love for any other reason other than I wanted to see if I could do it. So the fact that people like you read a story that was written about me on the Good News Network or the Chicago Tribune, there's been some instances of other media. The fact that people wanted to create it as a story is nothing but flattering to me. But the fact that it's living beyond me now, my Year of Love is formally complete. And now what I'd like to do with that exercise is to have other people benefit from it, have other people take it on for themselves. And I have evidence of that already. People, some strangers to me, some friends have taken it on for 2019 for themselves. And, no one ever really truly knows when an act of goodness drops into a body of water and the ripple effect that takes place. And so I'm very grateful that people like you are wanting to continue to perpetuate and tell the story of what's possible out of a year of gratitude.
Without betraying any kind of confidence or somebody's privacy, could you share maybe a story about somebody that this has touched and created a ripple effect?
Without knowing exactly how social media reaches people, I mean, I know how it reaches people, but there are people who read posts that I'm not aware of. They're reading my social media and perhaps not commenting or letting me know they're reading it. I can think of a classmate of mine from high school who I haven't seen since high school. We're friends on Facebook. She lives in Alaska, which is very far from me, so I certainly don't see her. She's taken on a very profound year of love, and she's writing on her social media, on her Facebook, and I'm seeing it every day, people that have influenced her and places that have influenced her. We're about, what are we, 17 days into the month. I've watched her posts every day. That's somebody that I had no idea that the year of love was touching or getting to her. I have no way of sometimes knowing who's reading what and what they're doing with it. But that's one example. And so Maureen is far away in a place very far from me, doing her own year of love. And I'm reading about those people that she knows, and I'm finding it incredibly interesting as well as fulfilling that someone else has taken that on. I do know that with these few media opportunities that have come my way, I've heard from lots of strangers who I don't even know, nor am I connected to on social media, that have really committed to themselves and wanted to share with me that they're taking it on. So to the extent that there's people I know, I can say for certain there's at least 15 people I know that are doing it. A young gal on Instagram who's a child of an acquaintance of mine she created a whole new Instagram account called Grace Being Grateful. And every day she posts about someone that's important to her. Now that's a teenage person that I don't have any relationship with who somehow got inspired by what she read on my Instagram and has now taken it on for herself. So I go back to that ripple effect. We never really know who will get inspired and then who will seek to inspire others. Now, all of those people who have taken this on are now inspiring their communities. To the extent that I'm comfortable calling this a movement, it certainly is a movement that I can get behind and that I'm proud to have been part of. But now I'm really committed to sharing it with other people.
You said earlier, a lot of people might think, I don't have time to do something like this. About how long did it take you to do this per day?
I have a full-time job. I sit on a non-for-profit board, and I also teach some classes. So, I have about as much time as anybody else. This took anywhere from 2 minutes to, I would say on average, thought, writing, and posting all in 7 minutes a day, 7 to 8 minutes a day. For those of us who say prayers or meditate or go for a walk or whatever your daily ritual is, this just became part of mine. I didn't do it at the same time every day. Sometimes I did it on my lunch break. Sometimes I did it first thing in the morning. Sometimes I did it sitting on the couch as I was sort of ending my day. I didn't really have a plan for when I would do it. I just knew that before I went to bed every day, it needed to be done. Really, on average, I would say 7 to 10 minutes.
Well, I use up 7 minutes a day walking back and forth to the coffee pot.
Right.
It's not that long, and it does change people's lives.
Bill, I want more people to listen than just your family. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a contest to encourage people to rate us on iTunes.
Wouldn't it just be my family rating us on iTunes?
But then other people can see it, and they'll help us expand and grow our show so more people can experience the idea of Jesus not being a hippie, or being a hippie, or whatever happens.
Oh, so what we could do is we could ask people to take a screenshot of them rating us on iTunes or Apple Podcast and then email it to thehappyhippiejesusshow@gmail.com. That's thehappyhippiejesusshow@gmail.com. And they could win something?
Yeah, but we got to give them something worth winning.
Oh, I got it. They could win their choice of either a t-shirt or coffee mug featuring either Jeremy the White Butterfly, the Happy Hippie Jesus, or even Bill, the happy hippie Jesus Christmas elf.
Do you think anybody would really want that stuff?
I don't know. It's worth a try.
Let's go for it.
Woohoo! Now back to the show. Can you tell me how maybe the first few people that received your love notes, how they reacted?
I was feeling reflective on New Year's Day and grateful for another opportunity to start fresh. And I said, so Facebook land, here's what you can expect from me this year. That post alone got like 400 likes. I think people were inspired right off the bat. And so if I think back to those first few people, I wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be. I'm casting a line into the water without having any idea what's going to get stuck on the other end. And so I would say that being some of the first, which again, I had no order or intention of order or ranking or, the first month or so, it was people in my most immediate world, my dearest girlfriend and certainly some of my family members and things of that nature. And people were just really flattered. I'm just honored to be included. I would often hear that fueled my fire too. I thought, wow, this is not only a practice for myself, but this is a gift to others. Even those 365 people that I posted about, it's like a love note to them. Who gets a love note anymore?
And you got the exact same reaction from the first few people that people give when they get nominated for an Academy Award, I'm just honored to be nominated. I'm just honored to be recognized. That
it was a very sort of out of the norm thing, right? We don't walk around telling people how we feel about them. We reserve that for funerals and we reserve that for sometimes when it might be too late. I had a couple instances of, this is really a cool opportunity to say something to somebody that I might never get the chance to say. And what if I disappeared tomorrow? Or what if something happened and they never knew? Those sorts of things fueled what I wrote and what I felt about. Because I didn't mince words in these posts. I laid it on the line for people. I said it like it was for me, and I really let it rip when it came to how much I cared about people. Because I thought, this might be my one and only time to acknowledge some of these people publicly, or really even have the opportunity. It gave me the opportunity to say things that I wouldn't normally say. There was some real juice in that for me too.
I forget at the moment the homeless gentleman's name that you wrote about.
Sure, Anthony.
Anthony, okay. I wanted to say Andrew. I was close. Did that create an ongoing relationship?
I just saw him yesterday. The beautiful thing about Anthony is he was somebody that I passed on the street at least 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes more than once. And I never knew his name. And I had said earlier, I stopped on that particular day last year and said, I see you all the time. It's high time I learn what your name is. And we shook hands and he told me his name. I shared who I was. My relationship after that with Anthony will never be the same. We have communication. We talk about lots of things, including the weather, including how he's doing. He's really interested in getting a job. So I have some people trying to help him do that. When I posted about him, a friend of mine, Becky, sent me a message on Facebook and said, I ordered a North Face jacket for someone in my family and it was the wrong size. Do you think I can send that? Would you get that to Anthony? So another example of the way that it touched people. And I had 2 friends, Cindy and my friend Katie, send me money to buy him some gloves and to get him something as the winter really took hold. And I delivered those things to him and I shared with him about the year of love. And, I don't really know that he had words. He kind of shook his head and looked at me like, as if to say, who sort of does something like this? He sees a lot of people every day. I can assert that there's not a lot of people who are bringing him a brand new jacket or passing on gifts from complete strangers. I'm not taking the credit for any of that. I'm simply saying that there is an opportunity for anyone who's interested in being more related to the people that are in your day-to-day life.
We released an episode at the beginning of the year with from a church that does a relationship-orientated homeless ministry. And the deacon we interviewed could not stress enough how important it was just to learn the names of these homeless people, because society has forgotten who they are. And in learning their names and saying their names, we are restoring humanity to humans. How has this affected your faith?
I thought about that question a little bit, and, I have to say that it's my faith that had me do it. I have to believe that this is something that Jesus, whether hippie or otherwise, would have greatly appreciated for humanity and for the human race to be continuing this sort of work of inclusion and kindness and acknowledging and letting people know who they are for the world. It has me reminded that I'm here to do good work, however that looks on a daily basis, and to be a good person and to spread love wherever I can to those who need it and to those who might not necessarily look like they need it. But I would say that it was nothing short of a full shot in the arm as a reminder of the good work that we all must continue to do.
I know you've written your 365th love note, but are you continuing to do this?
I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I miss the project. As December ticked on of this past year, I thought, what am I going to do? I named this thing the Year of Love. Of course, it didn't have a date on it, but what exactly is it going to be next year? And I've really missed the opportunity because it did become a daily practice. It's really something that is part of your everyday. It didn't take much time, but it certainly was on my calendar or in my mental calendar each day. I was with somebody last night at dinner and had this unbelievable waitress. And I thought, now, gosh darn, she would have been in the Year of Love. And my friend at dinner said, well, why don't you post about her? And I thought, I am going to go back to posting when it strikes me about people that I care about, whether known or unknown. I'm going to go back to doing that, as well as making my priority that in 2019, the Year of Love, become a movement that people can get behind. And I said it earlier, in a time when we're prone to anger and not be kind to one another, this is really a cool opportunity for people, even when they're not sure they feel like it, to take a look at what it means to be grateful and really reap the benefits.
That is an interesting thing you just mentioned. I'm sure there are days you did not feel like it. When you went ahead and wrote on those days, did it change your whole day or your mood?
Yeah. So, I'm a human being, as we all are. And, I'd be lying if I said that every day was an A+++ day. There were days when I was in a foul mood or didn't have a good day or things didn't go my way. And I never wavered in my commitment to be grateful. And in the writing about people, in the writing about strangers, I certainly did see my disposition turn around. I did see an opportunity to change my mind about how the day had gone. Now, I'm not also going to say that it was a life-shattering exercise. I'd be fooling myself and all of you. There were just some days when it was a little bit harder than others. But I will say that, to your point, the exercise, actually doing the post, writing the little love note to somebody really did change the way I felt.
I'm just curious, what was it like to write love note number 365?
Like any fulfilling exercise, the pressure was on. I felt like it needed to be, I had my friend Ashvin. He said, who's going to be 365? Have you thought about it? I said earlier that I ran out of days. I had too many extra people, too many opportunities to love on lots of people that didn't get mentioned. And so the 365th post was about my experience. But those leading up to it, I won't lie, I felt some pretty tremendous pressure, to get it all in. Like how, looking back on it, I suppose I shouldn't have declared that it was just a year. I suppose I could have just declared that this was a new practice for me, and I still can do that. But to your point, sitting down to write the final day of it, it was really touching. It was really an opportunity to reflect on, how great that experience had been. I had not 1 inch or percentage of regret about anything that I did or said. I sat in gratitude with how much bigger of a person I was out of having done the experiment. At that time, the Chicago Tribune, which is, our primary paper, was writing an article, and I was super grateful that other people were going to hear about it that I might not have been connected to directly. And so really it was just a real exercise at those moments of just real gratitude of having completed that project. It feels good to do what you said. We all know that when we say we're going to do something and then we actually do it, how great that feels and how it fuels you to want to do more of that. And so all the way around, every direction I looked, the project had done nothing but good for myself and, more importantly, for others.
2 weeks ago, you're a Chicago person. I'm a Chicago Bears fan.
Yay.
Did you want to write a love letter to Cody Parkey and make him feel better?
It's so interesting because there was so much said, as you can imagine, in Chicago about the two camps who had very strong feelings one direction, and then those that really spoke out about, this is a human being. Do we need to be treating him like this, and say what you will about his record of being a kicker and not doing well? He was still a person. And so one of my friends, Stephanie, reached out and said, you need to write Cody Parkey a love letter. The year of love had since gone and passed. However, I do believe that had I been in the mode of writing one every day, he would have gotten one, because he was, his performance was profoundly disappointing. And nobody will argue that, but he's still a person with a family and a soul and a heart that also needed to be forgiven. I think we're not doing a real good job today of forgiving people. And yet I was mad, as lots of people were, but he also deserved to be let off the hook. And it was a real controversial subject around here, you can imagine. And then he did that interview on the Today Show, and there were mixed feelings about that. But I still acknowledge that he seems to be a really great person. I don't actually know him, but yes, he would have gotten a love letter from me.
And poor guy, it's hard to follow Robbie Gould. It's just, it is. It's hard to follow one of the best ever. So, and really hard to follow Kevin Butler, maybe the best ever. So, I am a Bears fan. So, well, I've got one last question for you before we go. You have had several interviews. In fact, I think I saw a picture of you with a certain Tonight Show host on your page. Is there a question that you wish all of us talking heads would have asked you about this experience that no one has ever asked you?
That is, Reverend, that has to be the hardest question. And I've really been dwelling on it since you mentioned that it might be something that you would ask. There's different people approach this in different ways. I've had a national media outlet want to talk about, negative aspects of it. I've had the Chicago Tribune, Heidi Stevens, who's an incredible writer, want to really talk about the heart of it. You're wanting to talk about somewhat of a faith driven side to it. It's really been interesting that each time I've talked to people, different people, WGN Radio, they're each person approaches it kind of from a different perspective. A question that I wish somebody would have asked, I think I've addressed it, but really, why on earth would you have done this? Nobody has really wanted to get to the why. And it's probably a good thing, because I'm not 100% clear on what the answer is. However, more importantly, I think than the question that hasn't been asked is the question that we can all ask of ourselves. And that's, why not? Why not take a version of this on for yourself? It doesn't have to be public. It can be in a journal. It could be on your phone, in a notes app or on a scratch paper. But why not take the opportunity to say things to people while they're here and while you're here? And so, great question, though, from you. One that really has me stumped in a way, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for classing up the show. I think you're the first person in 10 years of ministry that's ever referred to me as Reverend. I'm Bill to everybody, but thank you for classing up the show.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah. Our 10 listeners, my family and Jeremy's dad, will probably appreciate the classing up of the show.
Anything I can do.
If anybody wants to see your post or if they want to follow you, if that's all right, how can they do that?
Sure. So on Instagram, I'm actually J Kramerica from Seinfeld fame, JKRAMERICA. And then on Facebook, I'm just Jen Kramer, 2 words. And then you can stay closely tuned to this spring when we're going to launch theyearoflove.com. And we're going to feature lots of articles and media and opportunities for people to learn more about it.
Wonderful. And thank you so much for being on the show. I had a great time hearing your story, and I know I was inspired, so I hope that other people are as inspired as I am.
Well, I appreciate you greatly reaching out and for giving me the opportunity to share.